Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank my Senate colleagues for welcoming us. I actually just came over here because I wanted to try the U.S. Senate water. So we appreciate you having us here as House members. Thanks to our witnesses for your testimony here today on this very important topic. I'll just state at the outset here, America's global innovation leadership matters, and Chinese leaders recognize that foreign know-how and capital are fundamental to their malign activities to unfairly bolster China's own domestic technological innovation, including AI, robotics, quantum, and semiconductors. We've talked a lot in this committee, the Select Committee on China. China has a plan to replace the United States, and they're working at it every single day. They want to beat us technologically, militarily, economically, and diplomatically. And the sooner we wake up to that, the better. And as we think, unlike our democracy, the CCP can dictate and arbitrarily direct industrial policy as it relates to funding towards technologies they believe are most important. We've seen that with CCP subsidies and investment in research rising 6 times faster than the United States. The CCP plays by a different set of rules and standards than the rest of the world and has a track record of exploiting U.S. investments and intellectual property. We've heard a lot about that on our committee, in our committee hearings, to develop Chinese domestic military and intelligence capabilities that undermine U.S. national security. New restrictions on access to U.S. capital and expertise could hinder the CCP's ability to innovate new technology. We have a number of bills in the House right now that we're looking at. The U.S. must continue to create new tools to curb U.S. investment in CCP high-tech sectors and prevent U.S. capital from being used to embolden the CCP's military. I'll start with you, Mr. O'Leary. We've heard from a couple of our members today on the CCP's use of golden shares as a vehicle, but it also seems to be a vehicle for party control inside private companies. From your vantage point, are there any private companies in China that have the ability to refuse a request from the CCP over business decisions under this structure?
I'm sure they have the right to do that, and then you don't hear from them anymore. That's what I think happens. It's sort of a Jack Ma situation. I mean, you got to toe the party line. I think those are the rules. That's how it works. He was an extraordinarily successful entrepreneur, and then he disappeared for a while. And I think that's how it works. I think if you refuse to cooperate with the golden share participation, remember, they're selling down to 1% with effective super rights with that 1%. And, you know, I'm not sure you can go to your counsel in China and say, look, I'd like to object for this and litigate this in court. In fact, I'm sure you can't do that. That's what you would do here. If the government said to me, you're going to sell, we're going to sell our complete holdings and we're going to keep 1%, and we're going to tell you what to do every day in one of my public companies, I'd say, sure, let's go to court. That's why people invest here, because there is an appellate system on a check and balance of crazy ideas like that. So my answer would be, there's no difference in China between a public company or a private one. There's just a golden share. That's it.
Thank you for that. Mr. Ivankova, as I mentioned, while the United States still funds more basic research than China does, China investment is rising 6 times faster and is expected to overtake the U.S. in spending within the decade. How can we as policymakers support the development and fostering of innovation and bolster America's leadership position in this international competition?
Well, I think one of the first things we can do is prohibit American money from continuing to fund Chinese companies and their innovation and their military rise. I think that's what my big concern is, and why I tried to articulate in the testimony, is that we have companies on the commerce list, on the DOD list, on the human rights list. These companies should not have access to our capital markets. They should not have access to anybody to be able to do business in this country. But for some reason, they continue to be able to take American investor money and fund their rise. And it's like a whack-a-mole scene where we put one on an index list, they create a subsidiary, and then that subsidiary starts to get money in our capital markets. And that's why whatever Congress does, it has to be very crystal clear on the prohibition.
Thank you for that. I yield back, Senator.